So today, I'm so proud of the Senate. Every member who stepped up in a bipartisan effort to have their voice heard on behalf of the people of Texas. Last week, as you know, the senators sent a letter to the PUC chair and asked them to correct the pricing, which clearly he has the power to do. And if you have any questions about that, just go and look at Monday the 15th when they did change prices. They've done it in the past. I was really shocked by his testimony that he said he couldn't, because clearly he can. After that letter went out last Tuesday, the governor, which is rare, at 8:48 at night, I say rare because it normally would happen maybe the next morning, but I think that he realized the importance of moving quickly on this. And he asked that the legislature take up an emergency item, and that was on the incorrect billing and any other errors that were made. As I said on the floor this morning, on Wednesday morning, we normally meet for breakfast, the Speaker, myself, and the Governor. And I said, Governor, thank you. In fact, I put out a tweet afterwards and said I thank him for making this an emergency item. And at breakfast, I said, Governor, we're on a timeline here, and we have to make this correction probably within the next week or so. And it may be hard to get both the Senate and the House to write a bill, get through committee, get to the floor, get to the other house, and we need to move quickly. So I thought our first step in that regard was the hearings, and I want to thank Senator Hancock. Business and Commerce had two great hearings several weeks ago on these issues. But I then turned to jurisprudence, and I said to Senator Huffman, let's have a hearing on Thursday, which was the next day after the Wednesday breakfast, and let's get down to this, and let's bring in the PUC chair, the ERCOT CEO, and most importantly, Carrie Bivens, the independent monitor, who is the one who pointed out that a price correction should have been made. And let me just clarify this $16 billion against $3 billion. Because when she testified, for those of you who did not see her testimony, she said the $16 billion number is correct. It's the overall amount of money that the energy being at $9,000 for 32 hours roughly created. But there were a lot of settlements and accounting. There was some hedging. Some companies were on both sides of it. The net was somewhere between 3.2 and up to $5 billion. Those are real dollars that will at some point be paid by ratepayers. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what happens. I mean, some companies may absorb some of it, but they're not going to absorb $3.5 to $5 billion. If they are, let them raise their hand now and say, we're not going to pass that along. So I thought, quite frankly, after the hearing on Thursday night, went almost 6 hours, very thorough, that the PUC chair was going to do what he has under the law, and both senators will talk about this in a moment, the right to do. He said he wouldn't. I even asked him if the governor ordered him to do it. He said he wouldn't. He keeps saying it's illegal. There's nothing illegal about this. He flip-flopped all over the place between the House and Senate on that issue. And so I went back to the governor's request for us to act quickly. So yesterday, Sunday, we started working on this, my staff and I, late Saturday. Can we get a bill, and will the senators agree to come in and start a day early? We were supposed to be in session tomorrow, and postpone, suspend almost every rule so we could get this bill to the House today before they went in at 4 o'clock. So I started calling senators, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes in groups, small groups, large groups, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, as late as 11 o'clock last night. And there was consensus that, yes, they wanted to come in and address this issue. And so Senator Hughes, Senator Huffman worked on the legislation with our staff, and we were able to pass that bill out today. So that's kind of the timeline and why things happen. The governor called on us to do it. We've done it. Now I'm hoping, I don't think there's daylight between us. There's been some questions about process, who can do it, who can't do it. I believe he wants to address this situation as well, and I hope he will now, like he often says, get that bill to me and I'll sign it. I hope the House follows up and passes this bill on. But I know that would be an encouragement to them if he were to say that, and that's his decision, but we've done our job. With that, let me turn it over to Senator Hughes, who carried the bill, and Senator Huffman. So, Senator Hughes, anything, and then we'll open up to questions. And anyone else who would like to speak, by the way.
Thanks, Governor Patrick. Much has been said about what Senate Bill 2142 does. Allow me in my remarks to focus on why the Senate took such action and moved together with such speed. What happened that week, which we will never forget, was wrong. Folks shivering in their homes, the unspeakable stories we continue to hear and most people in this room experience at some level. What would be even worse would be for us to allow a mistake to compound that by costing billions of dollars to ratepayers. That week was bad enough. We cannot allow this to happen and allow the cascading bankruptcies and the billions of dollars to be passed on to ratepayers and added to their bills for years to come. So the Senate came together, cut through all the noise, and focused on what needed to be done and got it done. And this is really about first principles for all of us, isn't it? Complicated issues can cloud what's right. We can get bogged down. And nothing is more complicated than this. It's been compared to trying to unscramble an egg. But we cannot allow the fact that this is hard to keep us from doing the right thing. There was a process in place that week to price electricity, a process that everyone was aware of, the producers, the retail providers, the investors. Everyone knew the process. Yet, rather than follow that, the government abandoned that system in favor of an artificially set price, and then they refused to lower the price, even when that higher price was clearly not necessary. To refuse to correct that mistake now and move back to the market price, if we don't fix that, we're talking about billions of dollars for the ratepayers. SB 2142 can relieve some of that pressure by correcting a mistake that was never supposed to be part of the plan. That's what the bill does. We're optimistic it'll get done all the way through.
Yes, and I can't add much more to what Senator Hughes says, but I will say that, you've heard many people say it. I'm sure many of you feel, wow, this is complicated, right? It's complex. There's so many layers involved. But it can be simplified, and the independent market monitor, Ms. Bivens, did that for the Jurisprudence Committee. She simplified it for us so we understood it, and it really came down to right or wrong. And she said, I didn't make this decision lightly, nor her team, but we looked at all the facts before us. And yes, this was an extraordinary situation. It's never happened before in the history of Texas, nothing like this. And we've never seen prices reach the heights that they did, and they stayed there, right? Maybe it's reached the capacity a couple of times, but just for brief periods of time. So it's never reached the top like it did. So they looked at this very seriously, and they considered all the options, and they said it was the right thing to do. And look at it, they're the independent market monitors. That's their job. It was their job to do it. She laid that out for us clearly. The PUC chair told us that he had sort of flip-flopped on the issue. He agonized over it, over the decision of whether or not he should request ERCOT to do this or order ERCOT to do this adjustment. And then he told us, well, I don't think I can do it because it's illegal. So what the Senate has done today is to tell the PUC, in case you were confused, it is not illegal. You shall order ERCOT to do this reassessment of prices to correct the errors and move forward. And so that's why we did the legislation. It was the right thing to do. The PUC is now clearly told from the Senate's perspective that they need to move forward. ERCOT needs to move forward with the policies and the procedures that are in place that have been approved previously by the ERCOT board, and to resolve this issue. And we look forward to that happening. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else take 30 seconds to make a comment? Go ahead, Bob, and then Nathan, John. Senator Hall?
First, I'd like to thank you, Governor, for taking the initiative and moving out when it was timely was needed. And I think what we heard on the floor today, that this is today's problem we've got to solve right now, but we have more work to do, and you recognize with the items you put on the agenda for us that there are other things to be addressed, not the least of which is the underlying factor that our system is not as reliable or as resilient as it needs to be, which caused the problem in the first place, and I think we're on our way to addressing that this session. I thank you for that, Governor.
Senator Johnson, and I'll take some questions, and then anyone who'd like to speak at the end, we can do as well.
Thank you, Governor. There is a legitimate amount of concern about the action we took today causing fallout. There will be consequences of this. There will be winners and losers as a result of this. Those standing here today, and as well as the Senate that took this vote, recognize that there are consequences to this action, that it will reallocate some gains and losses, but on balance, we look at the total losses of doing nothing versus the total losses of taking this action. And we've got somewhere between $3 and $5 billion that's going to be uploaded to the system, distributed among participants in the ERCOT, and eventually passed on to ratepayers. And we don't accept that. And however difficult it will be in the public sector as well as the private sector to deal with the fallout of achieving this price correction, we're willing to do it because we think it's the right thing to do. At the same time, we respect that it may cause some harm, and this process is just starting. We will be working with generators, with retail electric providers, with all participants in this system to try to ensure that an equitable result across the board is going to be achieved. But this is the closest we can come right now, and if we wait any longer, it just gets worse. So let's fix what we can fix when we can fix it, and so I'm pleased that we're taking this step.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Question? Yes. Yes.
When asked about this, he seemed to think that the solution was going to be a lot more complicated. He pointed to the Texas Bill of Rights, Section 16, about contracts, and he seemed to think in his comments that this was going to be more complicated. How convinced are you that this bill will accomplish what it is you want it to do?
Well, he gave us the charge to handle this as an emergency item, and within the charge, he didn't bring up those issues. I'm not sure what those issues are. We are clear that we believe this bill rights this mistake, which was clearly a mistake. And I hope the governor will sign the bill if it gets to the House, and I hope he'll encourage the House to pass the bill. And any other issues, we can go forward. We do not believe those issues. Talking to our attorneys and the smart people behind me, we do not believe that is an issue. And if it was an issue, then it should have been brought up earlier when the emergency order was given to us. So we're not taking the shortcut, by the way. We're just doing what we think is for, as Senator Johnson said, right now, what we need to do.
And have you heard from the governor since you addressed him?
I saw him Friday night. I have not talked to him since Friday night.
Governor Cassie, calling with the Texas Tribune. Have you spoken to the speaker yet, or anybody over in the House? Maybe start with the state representative, like Senator Frank Goldman, who kind of taken the charge on this, on what sort of timeline and whether they plan to pass this bill out before that March 20th.
I have found after now my 4 sessions as Lieutenant Governor, it's best not for the Lieutenant Governor to call a chairman of the House, of a committee in the House. I did speak to Dade on Friday, and I did communicate with him today. We haven't talked, though, that I hope they will seriously consider this bill. Look, the hearing that Chairman Huffman convened on Thursday was eye-opening. Was just eye-opening. I mean, there was this comment that the chairman made at one point that the market, was causing lives. The market doesn't cost lives. Decisions made by humans and some unprecedented weather, a collection of issues happen. But on the day that we're talking about, the 32 hours, that it should not have been $9,000, they put out a press release at 8:11 on Thursday morning and said that there was no more load shed. That doesn't mean everybody had power. I mean, there are people somewhere in Texas right now that don't have power for some reason. But they were building up to 16,000 megawatts of reserve, and they still kept the price at $9,000. They said they were concerned about people getting off the grid. They cannot get off the grid. We were in category level 3, EEA 3. You cannot take yourself off the grid without severe penalties. And they were concerned, a novel idea, as the chairman spoke in testimony, no one had ever heard of this before, But, well, all the residential customers are fine, but we're worried about some industrials coming on. Well, you take the market back down to where it should be, and if there's an impact, you let the market work. And so, again, the testimony was clear. Carrie Bivens was unimpeachable as a witness, and this is a mistake, and it must be corrected. I believe the governor wants to do it, and all of these issues are going to end up in court at some level anyway, but if we can at least correct this, it's a good start to do the right thing. I'm not focused on winners and losers. I don't know who they are. I don't know who gained or lost. It will be up to us, once this is corrected, and it should be, it will be up to us as a Senate, the Chair of Finance is here, and all of us to decide how are we going to help all of these people pay their bills. And we're going to make a very strong statement about that once we know what that final number is. And it's going to be in the billions just for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's going to be in the billions. But we're going to step up and help these ratepayers at some level, and we're not going to let it wipe them out. Next question.
So Wes Graham with Next Door Media Group. Building off of that, what is your message for the people who may find out in the coming days that they are on the unfortunate end of this deal? What can you say to those folks?
What I've said from day one, first of all, don't panic. All right, some people are getting very high bills, whether individuals or business. Don't panic. But it's going to take some time for us to work through this. We have to see what the real numbers are, and that's going to take time for all that accounting to happen. We have a do not disconnect order at this point. We're going to work with these companies. Now, I'm aware that already some, and this wasn't just individual companies. There were co-ops and cities. I mean, I think the city of San Antonio right now is about 700 to 800 million short. And Brazos, they're 1.8 billion short. So we have a lot to unpack here. And so I'm telling people, don't panic. We will work through this, and we will try to do everything we can to take this burden off of their shoulders. For another day, I still don't think the $9,000 cap was done properly on the 15th because the market's supposed to set it, not for them to set it. In fact, that's why when the PUC chair said, well, I can't make corrections, there was actually an order by the PUC on Monday, the 15th, to go back and retroactively increase the price for people who were already on the system on Sunday. So when you say you can't do it, you did it, and he's done it in the past. And then they rescinded that order for some reason. So we will address that. I know there are companies right now that are already sending out notice to some of their clients. We're going to add so much a month to your bill for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We're going to look at all of that. So give us time to work through this. This is complex and complicated.
Are you concerned about communities like Lubbock preparing to join the ERCOT grid this summer? Do you have any worries about that?
Senator Perry's not here, but I was out in Lubbock, and I'm not going to get in the middle of their city politics. But look, the one thing what did we learn out of this? The system has worked well for 20 years, but it broke down in a severe time. We've got to fix that. We learned that renewables you can't rely on. It's great to have them on a day like today, but we couldn't rely on wind and solar. We've learned that there should be an equal playing field because if you're a natural gas provider and you can't provide the megawatts that you've committed to, you have to go on the spot market and buy it. Wind and solar doesn't have to do that. They're going to have to step up and do that. We need more megawatts of power that do not count on wind and solar when we need them because they're just not there in the hottest of hottest days when the wind's not blowing or in severe storms like the winter. Time for one more question? Oh, I'm sorry, you had one. Let me go somewhere else. Yes, sir.
About that price correction on Monday.
Yes.
They said that the algorithm that assessed the price was mistaken because they had excess reserves on back end. Did that affect your assessment of whether it was a mistake at all?
Well, that wasn't on Thursday. They were talking about that on Monday. So again, we're going to address that in another day. Okay, right now we're talking about this 32 hours. But, the market's supposed to go up there by demand, not by decree. That's right. And that's what happened on Monday. If you take $9,000 cap times about 50 megawatts of power, which is about what we were running, times 90 hours over that time, it's about $40 billion. Now, again, that will reduce down as you do the accounting and look at the hedges and one side and one company winning and losing on one company, depending on what they were doing. But the net to that is, I don't know, 10 to $15 billion plus this money for the extra day. The system was never designed to see that transfer of wealth. That's right. Never designed for that. Last question.
Is a lot of politics?
Yes.
I understand your emphasis on the right now and current investment.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
Sorry, it's the accent.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I understand your emphasis on fixing things right now, but I would like to know, on top of retroacting to be bringing down prices, how far are you willing to push the long-term changes to correct the errors, but also adapt?
Yeah, we're looking at everything. We're starting with a clean sheet of paper. You know, one of the things we're going to do is reform ERCOT. That board needs to be confirmed by the Texas Senate, not by each other. We're going to look at everything.
Does that mean questioning the logic of deregulation?
No, it looks at how we can make it the best system we can make it. It's worked great for, look, we've had some of the lowest energy costs in the country for 20 years. And a lack of preparation, a lack of communication, I think some arrogance that nothing was going to break down and nothing was going to go offline. We need to categorize our storms. People, you know, they understand what a Cat 5 hurricane is, but if we were listing this, it would have been a Cat 5 hurricane. We need to look at these variable rate prices that a lot of citizens didn't realize how bad this could get. Remember, this $9,000 cap pricing, I believe, and I stand to be corrected on this, over the last 3 years, I think a total of 7 hours, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here, half hour here, as I believe Chairman Huffman or Chairman Hughes said. No one ever envisioned it for 90 hours or 72 hours straight. Anybody that would have envisioned that said, we can't do that, it's going to break the bank. And so this is something we'll fix. And one question I just want to make clear, because it's been in the print, because the media likes to do this. I am not running against Greg Abbott, okay? I'm not going to run against Greg Abbott. And I'm not going to be that politician who a year from now says, well, you know, I changed my mind. I'm not changing my mind. He and I work very well together. We've had a very successful run together. And I don't think there's much daylight on this, but we're working together. But the reason I've been so out front and in public on this, because there are going to be a lot of lawsuits coming after the ones already been filed. I want to be sure that anything that I've said is on the record where I stand. And this is not one of those issues you work out, over the desk and try to work out a normal piece of legislation. So this is not an attempt to be critical of the governor. It's quite frankly, to stand for myself. Ross Ramsey wrote today in the Tribune that the governor is my superior. The governor is not my superior. He's not their superior. The people are our superior. I'm the lieutenant governor. I run independently of the governor and the speaker. We work together. We work as partners. We're not superior to each other. The public are our superiors. The reason we passed the bill today, because the public clearly wants us to do the right thing, and I believe the governor wants that as well. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak before you leave?
No, we're good.
Thanks, Kevin.